All right, we are now ready to begin. Welcome to the Village of Mount Pleasant Plan Commission for September 21st, 2022. First thing on the agenda is roll call, please.
Bhatia.
Here.
Myers excused. Driver.
Here.
Hewitt.
Here.
Rissler.
Here.
Van Beckham.
Here.
And Bosanowski's excused.
All right. Next, we'll go to the approval of the meeting minutes from August 17th, 2022.
Mr. Chairman, I make a motion to approve the meeting minutes of August 17th, 2022 as presented.
Second.
Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries. Next, we will gonna kind of rearrange the schedule a little bit just because of time schedules of some folks. So we're gonna go from old business of residential districts. We're gonna move that down, and we're gonna move then.
There's no update on that one.
Okay,
so we
no
can
update on that.
continue to move.
Then we're gonna move to item number 14. Is it Sam or Robin or George?
George.
George, all right.
All right, so this is a bench donation for Campus Park. Pretty straightforward, similar to the one that was done last week, just different inscription. And again, it's going to be one of those where we're still waiting on the final location when we work with the person who is donating to decide which of the available locations we have at the park for it. So,
George, are you going to be able to get all the wording on there that was presented on here?
yeah, so every single rectangle that you see there is a available spot for inscription. So it includes spaces, punctuation. So as long as they have 30 characters per line, so.
Okay.
Okay. Any other questions of George? Any public comment on this? Then I'd be looking for a motion.
Make a motion to approve the Tessman bench donation as presented.
Second.
Motion a second. Any further discussion? I'm going to call a question. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you, George.
Mr. Chair, then we're going to move to George's staff report right away.
All right.
Yeah, so just 3 updates, and I know be respectful of everybody's time. I'm going to try to run through it relatively quick here, but the Campus Park update will be our standard update with some additional photos of the project. This new project that had started this week at Sheridan Woods, and then an update on our new building. So we've made a lot of progress here in the last month on Campus Park. In some of the photos, what you'll see is we've done some hydro seeding, paving, splash pad concrete, band shell. You can see we've gotten the windows installed at the concession area and the bathrooms. The picture on the left, you can see we blanketed the soccer/cricket pitch out there, and the grass is already coming in. This photo out there is a few weeks old. We've made even more progress with the concrete location around the softball diamonds there too. So as you can see, we've completed the band shell with all of the stone veneer. The stage concrete has been poured, so we're just doing some final touches on some of the doors, and then lighting will be taking place here in the next month for the band shell. This whole area here in front of it has been hydro-seeded as well. And then the picture to the right, those are the protective netting that is along that third base side so we can have baseball or softball use, which will also protect the people who are out in the Great Lawn area there. So that's a 24-foot high netting that goes on top, it's 8-foot fence and then 16-foot netting that will go on top of that. Just another view from so you can see kind of where we've done some paving on the outer loops. All of that asphalt work has been done on the outer loops, including the Smolinski Trail. The other picture is them working on the concrete for the splash pad. This was the concrete that is finished in between those softball diamonds. So you saw where all of the open area prior to the concrete being poured. You can see that there's some landscape beds that they've formed around there. Those will be perennial plantings that will go in there. And then we've started to begin some drywall work on the inside of the building. On the left is the trail through Smolenski. You can see how it goes right through all of those pines. It's a beautiful trail, about a third of a mile now. We have added some wood chips to the side as well. There's still a little bit of landscape work that has to be done, but all of the paving work has been done on that. And this is just a little bit larger view or a higher view from looking at the art walk. And then again, you can see that blanket in the left side for where they did the seating for the athletic fields. There's the wood chip work that I was referring to that's going along the Smolenski path. And then you can see this is actually a picture of them doing the hydro seeding in the gray lawn. So just a couple of things that are upcoming here. Before the next meeting, we'll have our dugouts installed. They're working on doing all the outfield fencing. Basketball court striping will take place. That asphalt had to cure for 30 days before we did any striping. They'll be getting the goals up for the basketball. Yeah, we're coming along. We're still targeting. Our punch list is scheduled for October 26th. So there may be a couple of odds and ends after that date that still need to be taken care of, but we are still on schedule. So with that, I'll take any questions regarding the project.
I guess we're good with it.
All right. So moving on, last year we put in a playground over at Sheridan Woods. You can see the playground on the left was oftentimes would flood during heavy rains. That picture was from 2019. DPW helped us remove that playground. The picture down the right is actually from that 10 inches of rain that we got in that area. So what we decided to do prior to that was we were working with Great Lakes Community Cooperation Corp. They are helping us install a rain garden. So obviously that's an area of the park that has flooded. And so when we were removing that amenity, we're putting something back in. So they're helping with all of the labor to work on this project with us. We're just providing supplies. So they've been out there this week. We provided some gravel for them to work for some pathways that are going to go in there. We received a donation of pavers for this project as well. So we didn't have to pay for any pavers at all. So they were laying out the area for where the pavers would go. And then they'll be doing some perennial plantings and some native plantings in there this fall, with some additional ones happening in the spring. So again, just some additional photos of where you can see with this project. So obviously a good location with all the water that's in there. They approached us for any projects that we might have had, so it kind of fell in line with our own native planting capital projects. And again, removing an amenity in that park and providing them with something that is a great addition. We also have somebody who is potentially going to donate us a bench, so then we would be able to acknowledge the individuals who helped put this rain garden in with an inscription for a new bench out there. So,
Excellent. Any questions on that one? Yep. Okay.
and then each week or each month, you guys have asked questions about the building. So we are up and running for taking reservations for the building now. Fee schedule and everything is available online, as well as a packet to reserve the building. We've taken in a couple of inquiries already just this week. So if anybody is interested, you can take a look at it. The page launched on Monday. So there's a dedicated park building link there with a couple of interior photos and all of the breakdowns of how we charge for the use of the building. There is an option, depending on where their group would fall in, for free use during weekdays between 9 and 4. but all the other usage is at an hourly rate. So,
Excellent.
and that's all I have.
All right, George, any other questions or comments for George? No? Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Great report. All right, next on the agenda, are we moving to number 8?
Yes.
Okay, next on the agenda, we'll get back online in a minute here, but next will be 801 24th Street Site Plan Review, SP 2022. So if you want to move to that on your agendas here.
So apparently somebody wants to contact me. Greetings, Chair and Planning Commissioners and audience. So this executive summary is for 801 24th Street Site Plan Review. The owner is Case Equipment Corp. Applicant for C&H Industrial is John Shop. Comp plan has it as manufacturing, and the local planning area is 20, and the zoning existing district is M2. The applicant applied to build an unoccupied, unconditioned, approximately 6,000 square foot implement storage building and a test track to the south of the existing test facility buildings. The proposed building includes a large 16-foot overhead doors on either side of the building. The proposed test track includes a half-mile outer distance lap, a circular bump testing track, and a longitudinal bump testing track. They will use this track to test the agricultural equipment that they design and manufacture. This is the first phase of work, which will include improvement and expansion of the existing facility. They have indicated that they're going to continue to expand in the future. The applicant indicated that they will submit those later plans for review separately. The applicant in this property is currently remediating the site for environmental contamination through the Wisconsin Department of Natural Resources and the Environmental Protection Agency. That's the WDNR and EPA correspondingly, which limits the potential construction in several areas of the site. The village staff consulted WDNR regarding the proposed plans, and the project lead indicated that the proposed plans do not directly conflict with the current remediation limitations. This application does follow the comprehensive plan. The village doesn't have an adopted plan for local planning area 20. However, the village staff has long considered this site very unique due to both its challenges and its opportunities. Going through basically the regulations as all kind of identified in your packet, there are no overlay districts, and the uses allowed on the property. They allow accessory storage buildings and transportation and commercial vehicle manufacturing uses by right. It also allows commercial vehicle repair and maintenance by right. While the test track isn't necessarily a use defined in the code specifically, we categorize it as an accessory use for the main use of the site, which is the C&H testing facility, the offices and whatnot, which because of that, the applicant will have to merge the parcels together. Currently, there's 3 parcels. They'll have to merge those parcels together in order to kind of have the test track as an accessory use to the main use on the site. Basically going through the different regulations, village-wide regulations for this site plan. For sewer and water service, the application complies. For parking and access, the application does not comply. Sidewalks or multi-use pathways must be provided along all sides of the property on any sort of public right-of-way. So, and there's also internal pedestrian circulation required and connection to public sidewalks and internal connections. So unless, and for some of those are in the city of Racine, unless they say they specifically will not allow said construction, that you'll need to construct those. The application does not fully meet the outdoor lighting ordinance because they do not have a full photometric map lighting plan, although the lighting plan indicated bulbs that were over 3,000 degrees. So, and that is due to our outdoor lighting ordinance, 3,000 degrees is the limit. For landscaping and screening, that does not meet the required code because the outdoor storage and work area screening portion is not met. So basically, this was something that that I found. So I reviewed it a little bit later, and sometimes I, kind of dig deep into the code and stuff like that, and be like, oh, this is a thing. So the entire test track is to be considered a work area or work site. That means the entire test track needs to be screened from public rights of way. According to the ordinance, that needs to be screened from anything visible from rights of way. So its distance from Sheridan Road or 24th Street or the street to the south, which escapes me right now, that doesn't matter. So they basically, at a very minimum, will have to screen 2,400 linear feet around the test track. If they screened along the edge of the property, that would be approximately 4,400 linear feet. To translate into how many trees that would be somewhere between 440 and 880 evergreens for the smaller version of it. Also, a 6-foot masonry wall would suffice. We have been in contact with the applicant, and some portions of the site are already sufficiently screened. There is a masonry wall on portions of the site. There are berms on portions of the site, et cetera, et cetera. There is a slight complication with that landscape code in that the areas under environmental remediation are capped, meaning it's basically as it would, they put a cap over top of something. So the only thing that's allowed on top of that is basically turf grass. So you couldn't install tall shrubs or trees or build a masonry wall. So they would have to avoid those areas. So there were no landscaping plans submitted because they weren't adding any parking. They did not believe that they had to submit landscaping plans. It meets the fence and walls regulations. It meets the performance standards regulations. The nonconformity and intersection visibility regulations are not applicable. They meet the bluff and ravine setbacks. The bluff setback is approximately 123 feet from the toe of the bluff. They're over 300 feet from the toe of the bluff. The flood protection section is not applicable, and as far as the shoreline protection section, that is not met because the entire site is under the shoreline protection zone because that's within 1,000 feet of Lake Michigan. So that means anything within 1,000 feet is subject to additional regulation. In this one, the regulation is vegetative buffers, so they have to have a 75-foot vegetative buffer area along the top of the bluff, and that's not indicated on the site plan. Okay, so moving along, the fiscal impact, the lands contained do not have any tax incremental district at this time. The applicant intended that they plan to improve and expand the existing facility. However, village staff have to review the application as is, and village staff believe that this application is not the highest and best use for such a large chunk of lakefront property. Also, if the planned expansion is sufficiently large, such planning is best done up front through a master planning process or similar mechanism, as opposed to planning the site piecemeal. That would also help the developer alleviate some of the substantial impact of some of the ordinances, such as the landscape screening code. So if they're putting additional buildings in the way, they obviously don't need to screen them. So that could save them, if they plan on putting buildings there, that could save them a lot of money if they just let us know. So the addition of a mix of uses could raise the value of mostly vacant property, though according to the WDNR, the current remediation plan precludes possible conversion to commercial or residential, thereby limiting the potential value of the uses. Basically, they have a DNR remediation plan. That remediation plan is conditioned that the only thing that is going to be used for the property in the future is a future industrial use. So that kind of limits what it could be. The property owner would, if they wanted to consider such other uses or types of uses, they would need to undergo additional remediation measures. Additionally, the village would need to update its comprehensive plan to allow for those additional uses. As it stands, this would be a negligible increase in assessable value to the village. Additional staff considerations. The site plan consistently consists of property across 3 parcels. The applicant must merge all those 3 of those parcels to proceed with the site plan. Depending on the location, WDNR remediation limitations may prevent land disturbance, such as foundations or tree plantings that the applicant must utilize under the landscaping and screening requirements. This property is a potential area for an environmental remediation plan enabled by Wisconsin 2017 Act 70. Those are basically special environmental remediation tax increment districts, which are basically almost like I can't say like a freebie, but like is a tax increment district that doesn't count against the overall limit, and it's specifically used to clean up environmental measures. We think that it would be applicable to sort of bluff erosion or additional environmental contamination. Say if that we wanted to convert this to a commercial or residential use and it needed additional ones. Those are just possibilities, but just wanted to note that that was out there. The village staff don't recommend any conditions for approval because the village staff recommend that the Planning Commission move to table SP 2022 until the applicant updates the parking and access plan, lighting plan, landscape and screening plan, and shoreline protection plan to comply with those divisions of the zoning code. Other than obviously meeting all of those things, it is a by right use and would be allowed under the zoning code. So questions? I know that was a lot.
Go ahead, Tom.
I'm curious, given, I agree with you about tabling this, but I'm just wondering, why wouldn't it have made more sense for the owner to have addressed your concerns before we came to the commission? So we look at something that's ready to be passed upon.
Sure. So that is just a kind of just a general timetable sort of thing as far as when the initial meeting was done and when the sort of in-depth review was done. In-depth reviews typically take multiple hours. So that wasn't done until last week. And so when I did that, that's when some of these issues came up. We notified the applicant immediately, let them know of the situation. They still wanted to get it out in front of you guys so you can kind of get a look at it. And if you had anything else to add, that you could let them know. So, and because of previous talking with you guys, we also, were recommending to table it because of your concerns with approving something with too many conditions or anything like that. I mean, that would still be, if you guys decide to do that, that would be fine, but that's not what our recommendation is at this time.
I was also going to ask, picking up on some of your comments, about this. We all know the property. I mean, it has its challenges, but it certainly has a lot of potential. Mm-hmm. And I think it would be great if it could be developed in a fashion that's best for the village and for the owner, because this can't be the highest and best use for lakefront property. I mean, a testing track for tractors, I understand why they'd like to have it, but it seems to me the wrong place. Yet, the site's captive to this remediation plan, which you're telling me precludes conversion to commercial or residential use, or so are you almost back to getting a use like this? I mean, isn't there some, do we have input in this master plan? Is it somewhat outdated? Is there a possibility the master plan could be updated to provide for more flexibility for the owner and, for the village to get better uses down the road? Yes.
The short-term thing is yes, but so the property owner would have pursued the industrial remediation plan because, one, it's both the sort of the lowest bar to cross, as well as that was the only thing that was allowable under zoning and the master plan. We we had discussed this particular property during previous master plan updates in 2018 and 2020. Well, the zoning code update in 2020 and 2018. But we decided not to really do much with it. There was a bunch of question marks, as you guys will talk about. And so that's why they would choose that. That was the best option for them, because whatever the property owner would use it for would qualify under that zoning classification. So, I mean, I don't think they're going to develop residential or commercial lakefront property. So, if it was converted into something else, the first step would be to allow that under the comp plan, which is something that, we would support. And you wouldn't really, I have yet to hear, and actually I have a letter out to the DNR, which then has to contact the EPA. Basically, if it needed to be converted to one of those, what would need to be done? So like, is it start all over? Is it, just kind of add on to what's there, or something different? So that is out and under question. So my hunch is that it would just need a new plan with more intense remediation measures, but one that obviously the property owner probably wouldn't want to do if they wanted to keep the property and keep the use, because why would they?
Do I take it the 2017 Act, the Environmental Remediation Act, does that give landowners more flexibility and more incentives? Recognizing that at the same time you've got the DNR and the EPA involved.
Mm-hmm. It's mostly on the funding side for local municipalities. Essentially, there was some measures beforehand, but they changed them completely in the 2017 Act, and I have not really. If you put them up side by side, I've been trying to compare them, but it crossed my eyes. But essentially how it works is, instead of like the gain of increment as a usual tax increment district does, it basically sets everything to zero, and you use the current value tax dollars to remediate the land. There's not too many of these. I think there's only 17 in the entire state. But it is a special kind of option. And because the EPA is already involved, I felt like that should be mentioned.
Go ahead, Ram.
Robin, in line with your response to Commissioner Wembeck's questions, I have similar comment, but coming from a different angle. You mentioned that on the one side, this is not good use of the land on the lakefront, and we also heard that maybe a good use would be a commercialization, commercial or the residential property, but on the other hand, it is industrial development. And then you also mentioned that under the additional staff consideration, that this property is a potential area for an environmental remediation plan enabled by Wisconsin, and the DNR remediation may prevent land disturbance. So my question is, in your staff recommendation, to table it, why don't we include the clarification of what this land can be used for? Because why put the owner through, to have the access plan, lighting plan, landscaping, and all those things, if it's not going to be useful for one purpose or the other?
Mm-hmm. Two things. One, I agree entirely, and that's why that is out. But I mean, different layers of government to have different response times. And second, the applicant is also, when they indicated that their plans are to expand the facility and put in additional uses on the site that would correspond with this use, that also leaves another option out there where they invest in the site to have an investment similar to what they used to have a long time ago, which would be a win-win for everybody, because that level of investment would be a really high use and worthwhile as far as, taxable value for the village, and it would be worthwhile for the property owner, because obviously that would be a central piece of their real estate portfolio. Until we get sort of an idea of how far that plan is going to go, we don't know. So that's why the suggestion was I can only review what's in front of me. Okay. So just kind of, there's a lot of balls in the air, and it's been like that for a while, since I've been working here, actually, as far as what the future of this parcel is.
Thank you.
And that's not even going into other considerations, as we will get into.
Okay. Any other questions of Sam or of Robin?
Mr. Chair, the village attorney's here. He just wanted to give a brief update on the legal status of the parcel as well, so.
Good afternoon. I'm here because some of you on the commission, especially probably Mr. Hewitt and Mr. Bhatia, might recall that the village agreed by contract a number of years ago to have some obligations regarding the property that's subject to this application. I'm referring to the 2018, what's been called the Racine Water Agreement that the village entered into with the city and with the Racine Water Utility. That agreement covered a number of different topics that may or may not have to do with water, but one of the provisions of that contract that the village entered into had to do with this property. And in that, I'll just briefly recite that. Just so you're aware, I don't think it has any ultimate implications to what the planning staff is recommending to you today, or on this application, but I think it's good to be aware of it. And those of you that were on the village board when this was signed, you probably remembered it in the back of your mind that in that agreement, the village and the city and the utility basically agreed that this site would be good for sewer treatment expansion, and that the city has targeted it for acquisition for that purpose, or a portion of the property for that purpose.
10 acres.
I'm sorry?
10 acres.
And it doesn't say in the agreement how much, but I'm not going to speak to exactly the amount. But what's important for the village is what are the village's obligations here? And the village has no obligation to assist in any way as far as the acquisition of any of this property. The only obligation the village has here is if the city or the utility acquires some or all of this property for expansion of sewer treatment services, then the village must detach that portion of the property for that purpose only, okay? Now, this was signed in 2018. I have not been made aware of any type of acquisition attempts or progress or anything in that time frame. But I just thought, in looking at the agendas and speaking with Sam, when there's a property that comes up that's subject to a legal contract we have, and there might be questions about it from people who were on the board that voted for the contract, it made sense to make the commission aware of it. But again, I don't think that changes anything that Robin or Sam has said about this. From my understanding, if they meet the conditions, it's a by right use, but just wanted everyone to be aware of that. Any questions?
Yes, Ron.
Yeah, Chris, that raises another question. Like I said earlier, why put the owner through all these, what I would call enhancements or the access plan, lighting and all the, because even if we table it and we put the owner through that, according to, per that agreement, we probably would have the obligation down the road even after that to attach this property to their
Only, yeah, I mean, only if it's acquired or a portion is acquired by the city or the utility.
I guess where I'm going is, let's look into the future, we table it and the owner comes back with meeting all the requirements. And then the planning commission has to give a go-ahead. And then after that, that agreement comes into, is invoked for the village to fulfill the agreement. How do we do that? Because according to that, per the agreement, we will never be allowed to develop this property, correct?
That is not what I'm trying to say here.
No, and that's what I'm trying to understand.
What I'm trying to say is, this agreement in no way obligates us to tell the property owner they can't develop the property. Okay? So we should follow our code, follow the law in this process, which is what we are doing. And there might have been some confusion about what our obligations are to the city in regards to this property, okay? And our only obligation is, once acquired, if the city chooses to do so, the portion that they acquire for sewer treatment purposes only, we detach, it becomes part of the city, okay? We agreed to that at the time because what difference does it make for the village, frankly, if the property is gonna be a tax exempt use for sewer treatment? It makes more sense that it's city property if they're gonna put sewer treatment expansion on a portion of it. But if the applicant develops the property, you know, that's just something the city will have to deal with, or maybe it's something the city will decide, well, we'll have to look at other options for expanding sewer. I don't know. I don't know what they're going to do. All I know is, since 2018 till now, I haven't heard that there's been attempts or the process has started or anything. I assume the applicant knows about this, and I just want to be clear that we should move forward just like you would as if there was no water agreement here, because we have no obligations other than what I've stated, which is, if the city acquires, then the land that they acquire for sewer treatment purposes, expansion purposes, no longer is Mount Pleasant property, it becomes city property, if that makes sense. Okay? Any other questions? Thank you.
Thank you, Chris. Well, commissioners?
Like to make a motion?
Sure.
Mr. Chairman, I move that the planning commission table SP-20-22 until the applicant update the parking and access plan, lighting plan, landscape and screening plan, and shoreline protection plan to comply with the divisions of the zoning code as recommended by the staff.
Second?
We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Any public comment? Then on the motion, all in favor?
Aye.
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 Opposed? Motion carries. All right, are we back on track then? To the top?
We are back to the top.
All right, very good. Then next on the agenda will be 5723 Durand Avenue, conditional use CU 0222.
Just give me one sec here.
Sure.
Alrighty, Mr. Chair, members of the commission, the applicant proposed a drive-through car wash and self-service cleaning stations. The parcel currently contains a vacant bank. The applicant plans to demolish the bank for the new project. The applicant requests a rezoning the parcel from B2 to B3 because the B2 district prohibits multiple drive-through lanes. This, like the other similar style car washes in the village, have kind of three stacking like prepayment lanes before you go through the actual car wash. The use, personal vehicle repair and maintenance, is a conditional use in the B3 district, which limits overnight outdoor vehicle storage to a maximum of 6 vehicles. The village board intended this condition to apply to repair shops, and the village staff do not anticipate much, if any, outdoor vehicle storage for the proposed use. The applicant did not apply for site plan review with these applications. Village staff anticipate the operations of the car wash would largely mirror the Rocket Wash on Spring Street, the Tsunami Car Wash on Washington Avenue. ZMA 0822 and CU 0222 comply with the land use element of the comp plan, and the village does not have an adopted plan for local planning area 18. This generally meets all the base district standards. It does not have any overlay districts, and the use B3 district allows personal vehicle repair and maintenance uses via conditional use, as we just described. In terms of application procedures, this is subject to the Division 90-530 zoning map amendments and Division 90-550 conditional uses. In terms of fiscal note, the property currently has an appraised value of just over $1 million. The Rocket Wash on Spring and 31 has an assessed value of $2.4 million, and the Tsunami Car Wash at 6315 Washington Avenue sold on April 6th for $3.7 million. Therefore, the village staff would anticipate the redevelopment of the property would raise the assessed value approximately $2 to $2.5 million to right around $3 to $3.5 million. The property fronts Durand Avenue, which is State Trunk Highway 11, and the state's responsibility to maintain. The county handles annual maintenance and plowing duties. The property does not lie within any tax incremental districts. There are no municipal financial incentives tied to this project. There is no request for tax incremental financing. You have specific review and decision-making criteria when ruling on a conditional use. Those are listed in your executive summary. In summary, the village staff do not believe the use would endanger the public health, safety, or general welfare. Staff believe the site is in a dense corridor with ample municipal services and access to those services. The subject property is bordered, however, by residential properties to the south, southeast, southwest. The Tsunami Car Wash along Washington Avenue received multiple municipal complaints regarding the noise of the blowers and the vacuums. Considering this, the village staff recommend proper screening to the south and a limitation of operating hours. Staff believe the development will not impede additional development of the area. The preliminary site plan maintains the shared access along the front of the property to the neighboring property. Staff believe the development will provide adequate site improvements. Additionally, condition 1 requires full site plan review by the Plan Commission before they could pull building permits. Staff believe the triple stack waiting area will allow stacking within the impeding traffic on State Trunk Highway 11, and we believe the development conforms to all existing regulations of the district for which they applied. In terms of the conditions, we have the 3 recommended conditions. That 1, they shall submit a site plan for review before the conditional use shall take effect. 2, the applicant shall screen the properties to the south, utilizing one of the non-industrial district screening options for outdoor storage and work area screening, described in table -90-430-4. That's generally a mixture of heavy landscaping, and an opaque fence, or a full masonry wall, and they can choose either of those options or a mixture of them. And then finally, the applicant shall limit the hours of operation to match the restrictions contained in 54-5A1, which is 6 a.m. to 10 p.m. The applicant in their narrative indicated that their hours of operation would actually only be 8 to 8, so those are within those limits. So with that, the staff recommend approval of both ordinance 24-2022 and conditional use CU 02-2022, subject to those recommended conditions. With that, I can answer any technical questions that you might have.
Go ahead, Tom.
Sam, with respect to operating hours, given that the owner is proposing 8 to 8, it strikes me that 6 to 10 is maybe an hour or two early and maybe an hour or two late for a car wash to be running in an area abutting residential areas.
I just tried to, in writing that condition, mirror the other existing noise ordinances that we have on file in the village that we're enforcing, and those are 6 to 10. But you could certainly restrict that condition further if you so chose.
Well, if that's what's being done elsewhere, in similar situations, I mean, it seems to be consistent, so that's all right. Okay.
Any other questions of Sam? If not, the applicant is here. Please go up, name and address, please.
Yes, good afternoon. My name is Glenn Davey. I reside at 2305 Lisa Court in Palatine, Illinois. I am an agent of Zips Car Wash, which are based out of Arkansas, and also the developer Mays and Company that are based in Dallas, Texas. So just to let you know who I am, they've hired me as a consultant, my firm, to obtain all the governmental approvals and the entitlements. So I'm not the one picking the site, but I am the one that is working with staff and want to work with the neighbors on a good buffering layout. I gave you in the packet a nice narrative. I just wanted for everyone's benefit to just hit some of the high points, and I'll go quick on it. Yeah, we are going for conditional use and an upgrade from B2 to B3. And as Sam was saying in his presentation, our next step after this is to go into the detailed site plan, which largely is going to amount to going into the detailed landscaping, species, and the fencing. Zips is the largest privately held company, car wash company in the United States. They primarily have grown from acquisition of businesses, but of late they've started a new construction program, which they're building in multiple states. They go back 17 years in business, and I want to recognize, as I put into the narrative, that they're very proactive with the neighbors, working with neighbors on different programs, and also with the first responders and our military. I just wanted to speak to the economics of the project. The estimated sales for Zips at this location, based on the demographics, they're looking at $1.5 to $2 million in revenue. So if you were to take the example of a minimum 5% sale tax, that would net the city between $75,000 and $100,000 a year. The proposed building, which is the building and the equipment, is on the order of $6 million. It's a very elaborate building of automated equipment inside. And so that's going to pump both construction and services in from the area. Employees, we run 3 employees per shift, and as the narrative says, they open 8 a.m. to 8 p.m. What's unique about Zips, unlike some of the other car wash, it's important to know that our goal is for when a customer hits the site, arrives at the site that their car is finished with the entire wash and dry cycle within 3 minutes, and they're off. They exit the building and they're on their way if they don't choose to do their own vacuuming at the vacuum stations. The alignment of the building is entering into the south. That's where the water and the soap is applied to the car. And I did want to point out, and I covered that in the narrative, that there's no operation other from cleaning and drying that are outside the facility. The only outside facilities are the vacuum stations. So there's no rim cleaning outside, or there's no drying outside like some of the smaller car wash units. They'll have the drying and employees outside working. The 3 employees are inside the building, and the reason for the 3 drive-up lanes, it's really twofold. They want to keep the cars moving, and to meet that 3 minutes when they arrive till when they're finished and driving off, is the 3 lanes have 1 lane for monthly customers, and the car for the monthly customer will have a chip where it will be scanned, and normally it's the outside lane, but the car will automatically, the gate will go up, and those monthly customers will gain rapid entry into the car wash. The other 2 are for credit card and cash. The inside lane has 2 windows to deal with cash customers to keep the flow of cars running through the building. Lastly, as Sam was saying, yeah, our next step is to get into the detailed site plan. And ZIPS wants to be a good neighbor to the residents to the south and the residential property. And I have reached out with the community neighbor communication package with the site plan that you have in your packet and asking for ideas on landscaping and fencing. So I'll still maintain to take their suggestions when we get into the detailed landscape planning. Because buffering, we want to be a good neighbor. The previous bank did not have any buffering in terms of a fence. So we're going to propose fencing and landscaping along the south. So at night or during the winter, the car lights are not shining across the neighboring property to the south. So I guess in closing, ZIPS is okay with the conditions placed from the staff report, and I'm welcome to answer any questions that you may have.
I have some questions. On the vacuums, are those coin-operated additional charge, or are they running all the time like many of the other car washes?
They are free vacuums.
So they are operational at all times? They are running?
Yes.
Correct, okay. That's a concern that I have, because I've visited many of the other car washes that have that type of arrangement, and we've had so many complaints. I personally have taken, I can't tell you how many, because of the noise. The high-pitched squeal all the time. Now, it apparently meets our village noise ordinance, but you can't convince the neighbors or anyone who has to live around there that that's a fact. I know that there was some talk of these new technology that would reduce that, but do you have any information on that?
Well, as far as, I do not have like for decibel level, but they are not loud. This equipment, our equipment package is $1.9 million, the inside and the vacuums. The most sound that comes out is from the actual vacuum, vacuum producer. I'm sorry, I was looking for the term for that.
Okay.
And that we put in an enclosure, and so that's contain and mitigate the noise. So there's really no noise coming from the nozzle at the nozzle end. It's the vacuum actual component, and we're proposing to put that at the northeast corner near the Durand Avenue. So, I mean, Durand Avenue is a state collector. It has a lot of traffic, trucks and car noise. So this collector that's going to provide the vacuum is near the road in Durand Avenue, not on the south end. So
It does appear on one of the drawings. I mean, it's called.
I saw where
Okay.
it was, and it's abutting a neighbor. So that's, and I did some time and went to the 2 car washes I'm familiar with, the 3 of them, And I gotta tell you, Sam, is there any kind of noise information in the package that I'm not seeing? Because I went to Sunnyside Drive, which is where the rocket wash is, and the back 9, you can hear it plain as day. And that's much further away than where these neighbors would be. So that is a huge concern of mine, the noise. And I don't know that I can take anyone's word for saying it will be enclosed and there is no noise, because that's not what my experience has been. Is there anything?
I mean, the village has typical noise ordinances that we apply to every parcel in the village.
Right.
So in regards to that, there's nothing more strict for car washes, for instance. This is a conditional use process, though, so you certainly have the authority to mitigate extra screening around that area, or however you chose to apply something that was directly related to your concern. So I think, your options are some sort of screening around the enclosure to try to deaden the noise even more than kind of their standard issue, or to add in additional landscaping standards on potentially the east property line, if you wanted to do that as well.
Well, when I visited the other sites, I don't think there's any amount of screening that would stop the pitched noise that I hear in the residential areas surrounding the 2 car washes. The only way I see around that is to have those vacuums inside. I mean, if I saw you have 25 stalls for vacuums,
Yes, sir.
that's a lot of vacuuming going on, and I don't know that I can trust that I won't be able to hear it, or that the neighbors would not be able to hear it, even with trees, 5 deep. I don't know how screening would stop that.
Yeah, I mean, at that point, that's kind of your ultimate approval denial authority on the collective rezone conditional use. That's up to you guys. I would encourage, if you do choose some sort of extra screening standard along any of the property lines, to defer to the existing standards that we've set for outdoor work area screening. So I think those are pretty comprehensive and also clearly written. But yeah, that's how we propose to mitigate it, at least.
Okay.
Do I understand that the other car washes the pump is running 24 hours a day?
I don't know if it's 24 hours a day, but it's when they're in operation,
When
they
they're in
are
operation.
running full-time.
At the very least, I would think we should limit the use of the vacuums to hours of operation. I mean, I don't see why the equipment would need to run during the evening.
But, I mean, anytime, in the other locations, anytime there is someone there, they are running, so.
Yeah, I
So
don't,
this is a pretty intense use for an area that is surrounded by residential, I think.
Yeah, it's certainly a tough site, and that's why, staff are trying to kind of thread that needle with some extra screening standards, because, to the applicant's point, to the north you have 11. I'm sure if I ran the numbers on the actual noise generation, the highway is likely going to be at a decibel level, noisier than anything you could put on the site. It's just typically like issues of frequency. People can almost drown out the highway noise. They get used to it, whereas this is a little bit different, so it stands out a little bit more in our experience from the municipal complaints that we've received around the other ones. So, to say it's not allowed for a B3 use, I could certainly see that, but that's why the staff are trying to kind of thread that needle and hit all the concerns with those conditions. But yeah, on one side you have a state highway, and the other side, to your point, you have residential properties. So I think the challenge for the commission and the challenge that the staff received is how do you balance those two competing interests and land uses?
Right. And given that the property to the south is residential and it's zoned residential, am I correct?
That's correct.
I don't see how this would not impede further development of those lots. I don't know if anyone wanted to put a residential home to the south of that property. So to me, that would impede it.
I mean, that certainly can be your opinion, Mr. Chair.
Okay. And it is just my opinion, yes.
It is one of the things that the conditional use requirements ask you to consider as you're going through. So, as you're considering the potential motion either way.
But how would we phrase something like that? I mean, if we're going to do it today for conditional use, how do we phrase this condition? I mean,
It
just
depends on what condition you're looking for.
well, to reduce the noise. I mean, from my
Mr. Chairman?
perspective, we could just reduce the number of hours of operation rather than being from 6 to 10. We could make, as part of conditional use, that it's 8 a.m. to 9. That helps some. At least people can go to bed and not hear it first thing in the morning. And then I guess we could say something to the effect that conditional use is it's conditioned upon the developer and staff agreeing on adequate, sufficient screening or insulating of the pumps to not reach some level, but I don't know how we would phrase the level, other than, I guess, leave
Chairman.
it to the staff.
Yeah, I hear that. I guess my comment would be, number one, by the EPA has the standards of the acceptable noise level, dBA. So my question to the owner would be, I'm assuming that you have built the similar kind of car washes, almost the same design, so you probably have a data on the noise, according to the dBA, X feet, X dBA and Y feet, Y yard, so you probably have the data, or if not, you can probably obtain that, from your existing facilities, and that would alleviate, that will answer the question of the noise.
On that subject, I had conversations with our car wash dealer that supplies all this. Because I know, for years I did the developments of the Firestones and before that of the Midases. But to answer your question, sir, because I was asking for the decibel level of any of the equipment that we have at the Zips, and the answer was they did not have that on that equipment. So I did reach out, and I would have loved to have that information as far as what actually sound, the rating of the sound. But I do want to make it clear, then maybe we should do is just put a standard. We can meet sound standards, but I wanted to make clear that this our compressor, we're actually putting in an enclosure. Normally, it's in most cases it's just sitting out without an enclosure. So we are putting an enclosure and a roof on it, and then we're screening the enclosure with landscaping. So. I think that noise up by the street is going to blend in with the street traffic, but I don't have a specific decibel level.
No, reason I'm proposing is that, Commissioner Van Beckham is proposing a condition, to put, how to word the noise level, and my recommendation is, number one, you can put a condition according to that the noise level will be below the acceptable dBA level, and the EPA has the standards of the acceptable noise level for the residential and the commercial, and so I think that's a concern, but that concern can be answered, and if you don't meet those EPA levels, then you have to mitigate that problem.
Is there a Zips car wash like this somewhere close? Where's the nearest one?
Not that I'm aware of. I know there was one. I did the Firestone up in Sheboygan, but next door to it became a Zips. But it was a competitive conversion. It was by acquisition. So unfortunately, it was. The equipment there is what the previous developer or car wash company put in, and it doesn't match what we're doing now for the new construction. So I don't have a new location. We're working on several, but this at Mount Pleasant is the furthest along of all the different locations we're looking at in Wisconsin, unfortunately.
I have a thought that the developer's still going to have to come back for site plan review, so there's still another stuff to go. So if we would table this today for next month, and then that would give the car wash people and staff time and an opportunity to address the concerns that you've raised, and then come back with the zoning map amendment and conditional use request in another month, and include it with the site plan, and then if everything's good, they're off to the races. I think tabling it would, from my perspective, make more sense than given the nebulous situation we're now dealing with.
Looking at Sam.
I mean, we certainly take these as a package as well. That's fine. On our end, I would just ask that you give us specific direction and what you want us to focus on during that process. If there's any other conditions that you feel would be necessary, we can certainly work on those in the meantime. But
Okay.
if the applicant is good with that idea as well.
It just seems to me that having a car wash that is abutting a residential neighborhood is not appropriate. That's my personal view.
I still believe that, from the technical point of view, that's the solution. That's the standard industrial practice, standard commercial practice, that you meet the EPA requirements of the noise level, because the noise level, X number of yards, and that's it. Test, you can do that in 1 hour.
But I understand that, but I'm just looking at what is in place today, and apparently, Rocket Car Wash meets those levels.
Right.
But you can go into any one of those neighborhoods' backyards and sit there, and you will hear it plain as day. So whether it meets it or not, I don't think it's appropriate for a residential area.
Yeah, well, I hear you and I see your concern, but if that's the case, then there's no point to put any condition for the noise level, because in that case, it's a go or no go, period. I mean, it's no point to go through the motion that even if according to EPA the noise is acceptable, what I'm hearing is that it's not a good idea to have the car wash in the residential neighborhood, even if the noise is acceptable level.
Well, one thing to notice is that resident is a non-conforming use, because the site, according to the drawing, is B2. So the theory was, at some point, that whole strip is gonna convert to commercial.
But across the street now from Winthrop is all residential. So you can say
And
that
in back, you're talking about?
the homes on Winthrop that are facing north will be looking right at this property. So it's not like they're set aside further down. It is, and B2 is business professional, it's not car wash. They're looking to change it from
Yeah, I
B2 to
understand that.
B3, so you're making it in a more intense use. Anything else you have for us? Any other questions of Glenn? If not, public comment. Thank you, Glenn. We might come back to you.
Okay.
Public comment, if you can come up and name and address.
Hi, my name is Penny Dusler-Nicolai. So good afternoon. My husband Peter is with me as well. My mother is Susan Beto, and she's not able to attend today, but we are the owners of the surrounding lots and land of the proposed Zips Car Wash. I've lived on this property for my entire life. I've been here longer than the mall, the condos, and I remember when Highway 11 was a 2-lane road, and I know these days are gone, but I have a lot of history. My family owned Elwood Drive on the east to Tahoe. We owned Winthrop, we owned Everett, and we've been there on the land since 1942. There's been many changes, and I grew up in a family business on Durand Avenue and understand living on a busy street and living with businesses. North Shore has been our neighbors, and they had green space and mature trees, and I could call them and ask them to turn down the volume on the ATM machine if it was loud. We've had a very amicable, non-issue relationship since they built. I'm not opposed to living with and around businesses, but what I am opposed to is the 25 vacuum stalls facing east in close proximity to our backyard. The loud music from the cars, the garbage, the lights from the parking lot, and the overnight parking that may or may not happen. The height of the building, the traffic noise, it definitely is going to bring in more traffic to that area. The current water flow and the swale that I have on the northwest corner of the property. And I could go on, but these are all common concerns that anyone living near a business, including yourself, would have. The current businesses around us are closed during the weekend or have parking on the north side, on the Durand Avenue side. So changing the zoning from a B2 intended to accommodate moderate intensity and neighborhood scale commercial buildings to a B3, accommodating a high intensity commercial building with a potential of 60 feet high, it really doesn't fit on the south side of Durand Avenue is anything but high intensity. The vacant lots that we own will be a loss for my family financially. What now would be considered a quiet dead-end street with potential to build a new home will now have a car wash in their backyard. Take the time to drive down Winthrop Avenue if you have not. We have a quiet, modest neighborhood. Most people that come to our home are surprised of the land that we have there. They never really knew it existed back there, and that's how we would like to try to keep it. So, thank you for your time.
Thank you, Penny.
I'm Peter Nicolai. I'm her husband. Just a couple of points here. It seems like the automatic conversation here was, what do we do to reduce the noise? What do we do for buffer zones? That in itself is already telling you you have an issue, and you have to buffer it in order to minimize that issue. What we live with now, he said that there was no buffer for, excuse me, North Shore. They didn't need a buffer. All the businesses there, like she said, everyday businesses, their main peak periods will be Saturdays, Sundays, evenings. That's when we're all home. So we're exposed to whatever kind of noise or not noise that they're gonna have. Like she said, the value of our home will go down. The 2 empty lots will be useless. And I don't see where this type of business fits in to this neighborhood. He talked about, excuse me, highway noise. I guess after a while you live somewhere, you get used to it. It's minimal to us. It is a very quiet neighborhood. Something like this, you will be able to hear. We can hear other noise from the other businesses, but it's not a constant thing. This is not a good fit for this close of a residential neighborhood. And like she said, drive in it and you'll see it's very unique. And something like this for business is just not gonna work for us. So we hope you take that into consideration. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other public comment? Yep.
Hello, my name's Cassie Reilly. I'm the clinic director at Racine Comprehensive Treatment Center. So we're the neighboring 5735 Durand Avenue. I just started in May in the area, so I don't know Racine that well. I don't have any like personal connections here or anything, but when I got the letter from them, I was concerned because of the driveway, because we have 340 patients, so we treat people with opiate addiction there. And we have people coming in and out from 5 a.m. to 10 a.m. So that's Monday through Saturday, and then Sunday we're open from 7 to 9. We don't have a lot of people that are there for very long. They're in and out. but we do have a lot of traffic, in addition to our staff. So, I mean, I'm not fully opposed, but at the same time, I'm not really for it either. So I didn't really prepare anything to say, but I just want to say that I am supportive of the residential area. Like I said, I have no personal, I don't live in the area or anything, but as a business, with treating, people in the area, I have to say that the concerns are, I agree with the concerns, so that's all I have.
Thank you, Casey.
Could I ask one question?
Sure.
Are you here as one of the owners of the business that you've talked?
I'm the clinic director.
Okay, so you're here in that official capacity you're speaking for the entity, for the business.
Well, I guess personally, I haven't really talked to Acadia, the corporate, about this or anything, but I got the information, heard about the meeting, and I decided I would just come to check it out, because obviously we share a parking lot, so it's going to be probably pretty intense traffic concerns for us. So this is my first hearing it. Like I said, I just started as the director in this location in May, so I didn't know a lot about the properties. I knew the bank was closed. I worked with Acadia for about 8 years, and I just got it like last week, the beginning of last week or something, that I got a chance to look at it. So I haven't really talked to the company to get their aspect of it.
And I understand, I wasn't looking to put you on the spot, I just wanted to know that you were,
Oh, for sure.
representing
Yes,
the
as the
interests
clinic.
of the business, that's all. So
Exactly,
if you're
yeah.
the
I just
clinic,
didn't want to be
that's
like, I'm here from corporate or anything, but,
Okay, no, it's fine, I understand, thank you.
okay.
Okay.
Anything else?
No.
No, okay, thank you.
Thank you, Casey. Any other public comment? Please.
Hi there, Isaac Berg. I'm the listing broker.
Name and address?
Isaac Berg, 833 East Michigan, Milwaukee. Just on behalf of North Shore Bank, I'm the listing broker selling the property. I can speak on their behalf saying that North Shore Bank is supportive of the project. What has been challenging with there being a deed restriction against banks, that's one use that we're not able to allow. The only other limited other uses that would be willing to come forth towards this project is another fast food drive-through, which there unfortunately could be noise involved with that as well. So of course Zips will do what they can to limit this noise. With the comprehensive treatment clinic adjacent neighbor as well, that can be challenging. There's a cross easement for access, not for parking, so those cars are not to be parked in the North Shore Bank lot. We think it could be an improvement to the trade area. And I guess we would ask for support just because with the B2 zoning, it has been limited users that could come to the table for this project.
Any questions of Isaac? Okay.
Appreciate your time.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Any other public comment? Hearing none. Commissioners, go ahead.
Mr. Chairman, we have to vote on this one way or the other. So because of that, we have to have a motion and second. Because of that, I'm going to make a motion. Okay? That doesn't mean that my vote will be that. My vote will be determined when we vote. So with that background, I move to recommend approval of the ordinance 24-2022, a zoning map amendment for 5723 Durand Avenue, zoning map amendment ZMA-22-08, and conditional use CU-02-22, subject to the recommended condition. And I am making the motion so we can have a vote.
Okay, we have a motion. Do we have a second?
Yeah, I'll second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any further discussion?
Yeah, I made the motion so we can have a vote, but I believe that the location we have a bank right now. I think this location is probably better for businesses like that, or maybe some kind of a accounting office or business like that in the residential. So because of that, I plan to vote no. I'm not voting yet, but when you call for the vote, that would be my plan.
Mr. Chair, if I could.
Yes.
I just want to note two things procedurally before you take a vote. One, per 90-530.90, successive applications. The zoning map amendment, you could hear, so you're recommending denial. This would go forward on Monday to the village board. If the village board votes to deny it, they could not come back to zone it B3 again for 1 year after this. So just take that into account with your recommendation today. We also thought it would be a good idea just to quickly highlight some of the differences between B2 and B3 for you all, just so you understand kind of, I think you get the general gist between neighborhood and general business. But in terms of commercial services, some of the things that B2 doesn't allow that B3 does are things like outdoor business or trade schools, convenient cash businesses, hotels and motels, non-accessory parking, so like paid parking lots, building supplies and equipment stores, outdoor sports and recreation facilities, personal vehicle sales or rental, and then via conditional use, it allows, B2 would allow personal vehicle repair and maintenance and fuel sales, but those are limited by conditions in regards to their size. Also, as a note, multiple drive-through lanes are prohibited in the B2 district, but not the B3 district. So, for what it's worth.
Okay, those are options that are available in either one then. Right. Okay.
Ask one question of Sam. I mean, if we vote on this, if it's voted down, then it still goes to the board, right? And if the board votes it down, then this project is dead, correct?
Mm-hmm.
For all intents and purposes?
For at least a year, yeah.
Just, again, speaking for myself, there's an awful lot of money and effort involved in this, and there's a lot of different interests. I just think it makes more sense. I mean, I'd have to ask Ram to basically pull back his motion, but my motion would have been to table it for a month, let them, the developer and the staff and the neighbors, see if they can resolve some of these issues in the meantime, and come back in a month, versus the project just being killed. Because I don't see any harm in tabling it for a month from anyone's perspective. And if some of the sound can be addressed and the filtering of the filters can be addressed and lighting can be addressed in the next month, then the builder can come back with site plans and everything else. And then we can vote on it, having given them that chance to address the sound, and then vote then.
So Sam, if we do move it to B3 and Zips decides this isn't the location for them, it's B3. Am I correct? Or is this specific for this?
That's correct. So in considering the zoning, you should be considering truly whether B3 is an appropriate zone for this, absent any type of application. The conditional use, you should consider, is this an appropriate use for the site? And you'd have to be very specific in citing reasons to recommend denial of that conditional use. And then the site plan, if you approve the zoning, would effectively be by right and follow it. So, kind of your most authority lies in the legislative zoning decision, and then it filters through for conditional use and then site plan. As a point, Robin pointed out that the site is master planned for mixed residential or commercial. So there's nothing even stating this has to be commercial. It could be residential or one of our mixed use districts as well. So this is not, they applied for B3, so that's really your decision today is whether B2 or B3, what uses do you want to allow on the property. But if the village board did say no, an applicant could come in with other districts other than just B2 and apply for those. Mm-hmm. So we're giving you a lot of wrinkles here, but yes. That's everything that we would consider.
What's the commissioner's pleasure here? We've got a motion and a second. Do we have a second?
Yeah.
Yes. And we have concern.
Just to add one final wrinkle, sorry about this. You could certainly vote to make your recommendation either way today, and then the village board could vote to table on Monday as well. So, that would kind of push it back a month regardless. If they tabled it, the zoning and the conditional use would not come back to you. It would go straight to the village board next month, but
Right.
this is certainly not the last vote that anyone will take on it, regardless of whether you choose to approve, deny, or table it.
I certainly, I accept that there's a motion on the table and it's been seconded, so we can proceed on that basis, proceed to the vote. I mean, that's
Okay.
what's in front of us.
Okay, any other further discussion then? If not, I will call the question on the motion. All in favor?
And the motion is to approve, subject to the conditions.
Yes.
I would vote in favor.
Let's do a roll call.
Bhatia,
No.
Driver,
No.
Hewitt,
No.
Rissler,
No.
Van Beckham.
Yes.
The motion fails.
It fails.
1-4. So this will be for you all and the audience. This is subject to a formal public hearing at Monday night at 6 p.m. and then is subject to village board action after that public hearing.
All right.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
as I said earlier, I was supposed to leave at 2 o'clock. I have another meeting, so can I be excused, please? I think the other people are getting pretty,
Sure.
so please excuse me. Thank
You're
you.
excused. We still maintain a quorum.
Thank you.
All right, next on the agenda will be Spring Street Certified Survey Map, CSM 22-8.
Mr. Chair and members of the commission, we're going to take the next 4 items on the application collectively together as kind of one big project, but there are 4 separate technically applications up for a vote. The applicant proposed, so we're going to go through the certified survey map, the Chapter 74 standards related to the land division, and then we'll go through the Chapter 90 standards, which are the zoning standards in relation to the site plan, the rezone, and the conditional use. So the applicant proposed splitting the property into 3 lots. Lot 1 is just about 5.5 acres reserved for the senior living facility in coordination with the site plan conditional use and zoning map amendment. Lot 2 is about 2.8 acres reserved for future development and some of the existing Roma Lodge parking lot. Lot 3, which is just over 11 acres, is occupied by Roma Lodge building and the parking area. The applicant proposed dedicating .7728 acres for public road purposes to extend Timber Lane northwards from Spring Street. Both the applicant and the village staff provided the CSM to Racine County for comment in coordination with the traffic impact analysis that the applicant completed. The county did not object to the location of the public roadway dedication. However, they did limit the access to right in, right out. So that northwards road that's shown would not break the median in Spring Street. Sorry. The applicant applied to amend the zoning map for the parcel that's lot 1 all the way to the west. Along Spring Street from P1 to RH1, the applicant wishes to develop a senior living facility use allowed via conditional use in the RH1 district. This application is in coordination with conditional use CU 2203. The RH1 district allows community living arrangements over 16 residents via conditional use, which limits the number of residents to the number of bedrooms in the building. Per the applicant's narrative, the proposed 194-unit contemporary farmhouse senior living facility would include a combination of 4-story and 2-story elements, all of which do not exceed the 60-foot maximum height limit in the RH1 district. This would also include an on-site parking, both subgrade and on-grade, specific dining areas, laundry areas, a library, beauty, barber salon, multi-purpose theater, a fitness center, mail center, outdoor amenities, including but not limited to a courtyard and patio seating area. The development will consist of 1 facility providing a continuum of care, independent living, congregate care, assisted living, and memory care. Approximately 194 total units as part of this phase. Daily meals, social programs, activities, customized levels of care. Campus site improvements with comprehensive stormwater management design and cohesive native landscaping and exterior amenities, flexible parking arrangements, hours of operations are 24/7, obviously, and number of employees, approximately 88. The application follows the land use element of the comprehensive plan. The village does not have an adopted plan for local planning area 6. In terms of Chapter 74 subdivision standards, we called out a couple things that they need to update. Existing and, if applicable, proposed zoning within and adjacent to the proposed land division. Existing proposed lot lines, dimensions, and sizes of all lots, and the minimum lot area required by the zoning district in which the land division is located. Location and names of any adjoining streets, highways, subdivisions, parks, cemeteries, public lands, and water courses, including impoundments. The owners of record of abutting unplatted land shall also be shown. Length and bearing of center line of all streets, location, size, and invert elevation of storm sewers, culverts, and drain pipes. Boundaries of primary and secondary environmental corridors, isolated natural resource areas mapped by sewer pack, boundaries of wetlands also shown. As a note to that one, the applicant did subsequently provide a wetland delineation report, and there are no delineated wetlands on the site. Shoreline boundaries and boundaries of 1% annual probability floodplain and related regulatory stages as well. Application meets the design standards for certified survey maps, and the application includes the required improvements for certified survey maps. CSM done. Moving on, Chapter 90 zoning. For base districts, the RH residential or high-density residential district is primarily intended to accommodate a range of residential building types and higher densities. When this chapter refers to RH districts, it refers to all RH districts. It's intended to apply only in areas with excellent transportation transit access, including major highway corridors. This is a county trunk highway corridor. Allowed uses, uses allowed in the R districts coordinate with allowing senior living facilities, community living arrangements via the conditional use that I already discussed. It allows multi-building units by right. We have some other standard notes there, but I'll skip ahead. The property does not have any overlay districts. In terms of group living, we included the formal definition within the code there for you all. I won't repeat myself. Highlighting a couple areas on the site plan that they need to update. One would be Division 90-420 parking and access. The applicant should provide, must provide 135 motor vehicle parking spaces per the code. The applicant provided 180 on-site spaces, but did not count or utilize the adjacent on-street parking towards their parking ratios. We just include that as a note. The internal pedestrian circulation system does not connect to the public sidewalk on the south side of the property. SB 1922 does not show a clearly differentiated internal pedestrian circulation system when the system crosses drive aisles. The western private drive and parking areas lie within the 75-foot vegetative buffer area. The village staff recommend relocating some of those parking spaces to the north and southeast portions of the site to coordinate with future phases and the future park site identified to the north. The village prohibits any lamp or bulb with a correlated color temperature that exceeds 3,000 degrees Kelvin based on the manufacturer's specifications, so we need those updated. In terms of landscaping and screening, the vehicular use area screening between Spring Street and the southern private driveway is insufficient. There should be approximately 38 canopy trees, 1 per 25 feet, but the landscaping plan shows only 12. The code also requires 4 low shrubs or 8 ornamental grasses planted every 10 linear feet along a 10-foot wide landscaped area. The village staff suggests using native prairie grasses instead of turf grass, which would meet this requirement cost effectively. The applicant may otherwise utilize a 3-foot masonry wall. There are, in terms of interior parking lot landscaping, there are 60 surface parking spaces in the western lot, which requires 15 canopy trees and 1,500 square feet of landscape area with 4 low shrubs or 8 ornamental grasses per 100 square feet of area. The vegetative buffer requirements and the village staff suggestions about alternative parking layouts may mitigate this requirement. In terms of everything else, we're good until shoreline protection. The application shows parking. A portion of the western private drive and potential future garages within the 75-foot vegetative buffer area. Per 90-495.50 vegetative buffers, required vegetative buffer zones are measured inland from the top of bank and must remain undisturbed. In terms of a fiscal note, the lands contained within the applications do not lie within any tax incremental districts. The applicant requested tax incremental financing assistance for the public improvements portion of the project. However, the village staff do not yet have a completed analysis by the village's financial advisor. Both the CDA and the village board must approve any TIF assistance request with the development agreement. The applicant estimated about $23 million worth of assessed value The village staff estimates the project would use approximately 2% of the taxes it pays over 20 years towards the cost of repaving the adjacent local and collector roadways. This is much less than the 6.7% the village spent over the previous 5-year average towards its paving program, showing the development adequately covers its share of public infrastructure maintenance costs. These estimates include the full cost of Timber Lane extension northwards, and the project still performs well. So any future development to the east side of Timber Lane, that lot 2 on the CSM, would actually further make the development perform better. The future phases, the project's estimated value per acre is about $4.111 million, which is well above the village's target of $1 million an acre. So fiscally, the project performs pretty well. For additional considerations, due to the existing parking being potentially in the vegetative buffer setback, a workaround would be to count on-street parking for the public street as well as the back and front access streets. According to the village's 2050 Park and Open Space Plan, a proposed park is immediately to the north of this property. Considering that the north and south drives will be need to cross access agreements anyways, the applicant should consider moving most of the excess parking to the rear of the facility, perhaps utilizing some angled parking. Conditions, the village staff have 11 recommended conditions for the 4 separate applications, and 5 of those are the standard CSM conditions that we included up at the top. You can remove the conditions regarding the wetlands, which is condition number 6. Staff also recommend that you can remove the conditions 1, 2, and 1, 2, and 5, because the applicant is going to update those on a separate submitted ALTA survey that the village will have on file, so we don't need them to include it as a part of it. Oh, there we go. Sorry. So with that, we recommend the final conditions would be 3, 4, 7, and then 9, 10, 11.
So Sam, just to clarify for the record, the CSM we're being asked to approve is the CSM that now shows up on our screen.
Correct. Yeah. It did include, as a further note, the applicable cross-access agreements and shared parking area with Roma Lodge for their existing parking lot. That was one of the things we were considered with, but Roma will provide kind of a secondary cross-access for that, because you won't be able to take, like a left out, but you would further east if you go out Roma Lodge. So this should provide some secondary access to the site for emergency services and things like that.
Go ahead, Tom.
Just a logistical question then, to the extent that you have these changes that you want to see made to the CSM, that will be done after this meeting and before the village signs off on the amended, the
Correct.
updated CSM?
Yeah, they're all pretty light, which is why we still felt comfortable recommending it. It was kind of just technical items that should be included or provided to the village in one way. They've been aware of it, so they're already working to address it. So we don't have any concerns with them.
And that usually would be done before it goes to the board, the full village board, or?
If they can turn around quick enough, we'll certainly take it. That will be the case further on in the agenda, where they were able to turn around some map changes between when we provided the comments and when you got the packet. Okay. But if not, typically it's within a week or so after the village board meeting. So definitely before closing and we sign off on the CSM.
A second question I have is on the bottom of your page 4 of your summary, you talk about how there this subparagraph 2, use-specific conditions. The number of residents in a group living use may not exceed the number of bedrooms in the building. It strikes me as kind of odd, because if you have 2-bedroom units, or I mean, if you have a 1-bedroom suite or a studio, certainly a 1-bedroom unit may have 2 residents. So How can, it doesn't a one-bedroom unit with 2 residents conflict with this condition?
Yeah, in general, if they were like a married couple living in part of it, you know, it was written a little unclear. The intent was to provide like 6 people in a single room.
Applies to the memory care. The independent living stuff or standard apartments.
Oh, yeah, that's correct. Sorry. This only applies to the memory care portion. The actual apartments are just normal apartments under the code, so that should relieve any of that. We just wanted to avoid like patient packing into
Well,
rooms.
I
for these
understand,
facilities.
it just seemed to conflict with a couple occupying a one-bedroom unit, so.
Yeah, that should be fine.
All right, I don't have any other questions.
I'd just like to note for a 4 application big package, 7 conditions is pretty good. So we appreciate the applicants coming with the full shebang right away. It certainly makes it easier for us to review it all like this, even though it is a fair amount. If you don't have any other questions for me, you can certainly turn it over to the applicants if you have any questions for them.
Any other questions for Sam? Then we welcome the applicant.
Hello, my name is Alex Rexrode. I'm located at 131 Watertown Plank Road, Elm Grove, Wisconsin. I represent the co-developer, Three Leaf Partners, for this senior living community. We are partnered with Heartland America, who is a senior living developer, owner, and ultimately operator of senior living communities throughout the country. So we are very excited for this opportunity directly adjacent to Roma Lodge. Today I have with me Aaron Koch, who represents our civil engineering firm. I have Greg Irwin, who represents the architect, and then actually 2 representatives from Roma Lodge here as well today. So, continuum of care, as Sam mentioned, independent living, assisted living, and then memory care. So with that, I'll keep it short and open up to any questions that you may have for us.
Questions?
I was just going to commend your team on putting together such a nice, clean proposal. I mean, we often see things with quite a few conditions, and to have this detail of a project with so few questions and few conditions is a testament to the work and thought that went into this. So on my own behalf, and hopefully my other commissioners, we thank you for the effort.
Absolutely. I would just add, as it relates to the few conditions that are remaining, if we could work, of course, with village staff on those conditions. One item that is specifically noted is an unnamed stream that's on the western property line. Of course, Aaron is working through that process in the appropriate manner. We'd like to reserve that to work with village staff. Basically comes down to, is it a navigable stream or not? That has impact as it relates to the 75-foot buffer. Of course, if it is a navigable stream, we'll absolutely honor that 75-foot buffer, but that's why you see some of those conditions in there in that regard.
Okay. Makes sense. Good. Any questions of Alex?
Great. Thank you.
Thank you, Alex. Any public comment on this? Yes.
Travis Yaki, 103 Trellis Lane, Mount Pleasant. I'm here again as a tax-paying resident of Mount Pleasant to voice my opposition again to the this village government's continue assistance financially to private development companies that are coming here to our village. This is either through TIDs that are set up or, as mentioned by the planner, a proposed TIF. And again, these are just diverting tax dollars away from paying for activities and services the village needs and funneling that money back to these private companies that typically do not need that for their development costs. Again, it'll be great to see a assisted living place here in the village, but again, using public tax dollars to help fund that is something that should not be done. Thank you.
Thank you, Travis. Any other public comment? Okay. Hearing none. Commissioners?
I guess I would ask for clarification from Sam and Robin. The TIF, following up on that gentleman's comment, I mean, our review parameters don't involve us in whether or not there's TIF, does it? I mean, that's not part of our job. That's
No,
the village board.
Generally not. That goes to the CDA and village board, so for the plans commission specifically. However, we do make a note of it in the fiscal note just to give you the entire picture. There are obviously some objectives in kind of planning that relate to fiscal stewardship of the village. So, you know, while you don't have any decision-making authority over it, that's why we make a fiscal note in the note, and that's why I think Travis's comments are perfectly reasonable.
Yeah, I
at
understand
the
your
board.
comment. It's just that we can't do anything about it. Okay.
I move to recommend approval of the 7130 Spring Street Certified Survey Map, CSM 22-8, Ordinance 25-2022, a zoning map amendment for the Spring Street. Zoning map amendment ZMA 2209, Spring Street Conditional Use CU 2203, Spring Street Site Plan Review SP 1922 to the Village Board, subject to the recommended conditions.
Second.
Motion and a second. Further discussion?
I just reading the one I got.
Okay.
Is there a?
I just had a question, whether his list of items for approval included the Spring Street zoning map amendment ZMA-22-10.
I think he read them.
Okay, if that, fine.
I read what Sam wrote, so if he missed it, that's not my bad.
It's the Spring Street related items related to this project. There is a subsequent Spring Street rezone further west on Spring Street on an unnumbered parcel. That'll be up next on the agenda.
Yes. Okay, so we have motion and a second, no further discussion. I will call the question. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you, gentlemen. And then this goes to,
Village Board, the zoning map amendment and conditional use and certified survey map. The site plan stays here. Monday at 6 p.m.
all right, next on the agenda then is 3528 Meachem Road Comprehensive Plan Amendment, CPA 22-2. Am I right?
22-10, I think. By the way, there is a sort of a semi-slight discrepancy sometimes with our numbering convention, and Sam will get to that later, but in our adoption of online permitting, the numbering convention puts the year right after the category title, whereas before our numbering convention had the year last. So just real nerd stuff right there.
And I think I did goof here. We're taking Spring Street next.
Yep.
Yep, okay. So next would be the Spring Street zoning map amendment, ZMA 2210.
Yeah, this is the second Spring Street rezone.
Right.
And it does not really, probably should have highlighted it a little bit better. So on the screen right there, it is the parcel directly to the north of the orange parcel directly to the east of the green parcel. This is 26-2022, zoning map amendment for Spring Street. The owner is I-94 Associates. The applicant is Fiduciary Real Estate Development, courtesy of Joey Wisniewski. The comprehensive plan is for residential areas. The local planning area is 1. The zoning district existing is AG2. The proposed is RM2. The applicant applied to amend the zoning map for this parcel along Spring Street from AG2 to RM2. The applicant applied with the permission of the property owner, I-94 Associates. The applicant wishes to develop a multi-unit use with up to 20 units per building allowed by right in the RM2 district. The applicant narrative says they plan to pursue a 320-unit arrangement for the site. Village staff believe the property's proximity to the State Highway 20 cluster of employment, adjacent existing and planned public roadways, and the nearby interstate system makes a moderate density residential a suitable zoning classification for the property. The property owner requested that the village board authorize the ordinance to take effect only when the applicant closes on the property. Village staff incorporated this request into the language of the ordinance. Consistency of the comprehensive plan and local planning area. The application follows the comp plan. The village does not have an official adopted plan for local planning area 1. However, the community development department guided a capstone project for UWM's Master of Urban Planning program that started on this local area 1 plan. Staff and students work together, and staff largely supports the findings and suggestions of that plan. And however, the village board has not yet officially adopted the plan. This zoning amendment matches the findings of that plan. Also, the draft site plan shows 2 public roadway extensions northwards on either side of this property, which generally comply with the general village roadway spacing guidelines. Basically, Carrington Boulevard would be extended on the west side of this parcel, and what we are affectionately naming Church Road for obvious reasons would be on the eastern side of the parcel. That's not the official name, just the nickname amongst the staff. Chapter 90 standards, it meets all the lot size standards. Fiscal impact, the lanes contained within the application do not lie within any tax incremental district at this time. The applicant indicated that they plan to request assistance for the project. However, the village staff has not received any financial information with the application. Any application for financial assistance would require basically a pro forma submission and meeting the but-for requirement test. The village staff expect that the applicant would submit any request for assistance in coordination with the site plan application, which would be upcoming. This was also kind of to note in conjunction with the Leo development to the south, the 374 cottages to the south. They are also in requesting that, and sort of talks of a 7th tax increment district are underway. The main purpose of that would be to extend sewer, utilities, sewer and water, which is currently located, is that 1,500 feet, 2,000 feet? Quite a bit ways in County Highway, Trunk Highway V. So extending it all the way down to these particular properties to service those properties without assessing the local property owners, doing any special assessments or anything like that. So I think we all remember what happened last time. And also the public roadway improvements. So Carrington Boulevard is a collector, which is a larger public street, as well as the Church Road public roadway as well. So those are additional costs above and beyond what the developers were planning for. The village assessor estimated the assessed value of each new unit as approximately $150,000 per unit. Therefore, the total assessed value of the project would be $48 million using the proposed 320 unit count, which give the project per acre value of about $1.85 million. Our target per acre value is about $1 million per acre. We do not have any recommended conditions for approval, and we recommend the Plan Commission move to recommend approval of this ordinance to the village board. The applicant is here, and they have a short presentation for you. So before then, do you have any questions for me?
Yeah, I'm a little puzzled by having an ordinance be taking effect upon the date 2 private parties close on a real estate transaction. So we're going to have an ordinance on our books without having any document of record of noting whether it's effective.
So
Do we do this as a regular practice?
Usually it's a time-based thing. Usually if we have a rezone ordinance and no sort of site plan is approved or building permit is pulled within a year, then the zoning would revert back to the previous zoning. So yeah, that's a pretty standard practice. However, we haven't been implementing it in the past few years.
So this 1-year lapse that's a matter of our ordinances, and that will automatically happen 1 year after what? After today, after September 26th?
So it could vary, but depending on the ordinance. Like the standard one we used to do, that if a site plan wasn't pulled and then a subsequent building permit wasn't pulled. We have an ordinance right now that when somebody gets site plan approval, if they don't pull any building permits or make any moves to do that site plan, after a year, the plan can be voided it is voided, and it would have to be renewed by the Plan Commission in order to be acted upon. That's site plans. We can basically attach that to a rezone petition or ordinance as well, and other kind of timeframes such as a closing or some such would be also appropriate. It's not necessarily really out of the ordinary.
But I don't see it in this ordinance. I mean, if we're going to put in our ordinance that it's effective upon the closing on the property, and I can understand why the buyer and seller don't want it to take effect until they close, but shouldn't we then have a clause 4 in our ordinance that says if, we're not given notice of the closing or something within 1 year, then this ordinance?
Yeah, I mean, we could certainly add that in there, no problem. But also, like, we would be notified of any land transaction within our jurisdiction. So we would know when that closing would happen. Also, they would probably tell us, because why
If
wouldn't
it
they?
doesn't happen, you may or may not find out.
We would. I mean, I've personally kept track of some of these and would kind of follow up on them in case of site plans lapsing and stuff like that. We are pretty studious about a site plan lapse up on the frontage road and kind of making them stick to that deadline. So I trust that since we have done that in the past, we will do that in the future.
Well, I understand something of this size and impact you would track, but some smaller things may not be tracked. I would recommend to staff that going forward, if you're going to have this conditional ordinance taking effect language, then maybe put some express sunset in the same ordinance. It says if it doesn't happen, then the zoning amendment becomes null. And you can talk to the village attorney and work out some verbiage.
No problem.
Thanks.
All right.
Any other questions for me?
Nope. I guess we'll hear from the applicant.
Super.
That's your clicker.
Clicker. Up is up. Good afternoon. My name is Paul Schmitter. I'm a development director with Fiduciary Real Estate Development, 789 North Water Street in Milwaukee. You're probably accustomed to seeing Craig Raditz representing our items. Craig's out of town, so for today it's me and Joey Wisniewski here representing this one. Let's see here. Yep. Okay, so Robin gave us a little bit of an intro to where this is located, so I'm going to give a quick little update or reminder as to our firm. I know you're familiar with us based on other projects in the community, but founded in 1984, approximately 400 employees. We are focused exclusively on residential and multifamily development. Our major markets are Milwaukee, Madison, Green Bay, Minneapolis, Northern Illinois, culminating in 8,000 residences in 37 communities. We are a long-term hold of assets with significant reinvestment in our properties, and with that, we also have a very large on-site property management staff that we employ. I thought I would include a reminder slide here. This is our Braun Road development, and I'm including it simply because the Spring Street proposal is going to be similar with regard to the building types in the clubhouse and just how that community lays out. So if you've had a chance to drive by the Braun Road site, the Spring Street will be modeled after that, which is kind of our Seasons branded condo style community. Again, 26 acres north of Spring Street, about halfway between V and the interstate. Wrong way again. Craig did the same thing with the buttons, so I don't feel so bad. I'm doing it. Okay, so it's currently zoned for agriculture use. Our request is to zone it to RM2 multifamily, and the proposal, as Robin stated, is 16 buildings that are 20 units each, resulting in 320 units. The clubhouse is a rather nice clubhouse with a pool, a fitness center, resident recreation space. We also include a dog run, enhanced landscaping, and leasing offices. And again, this is our Seasons kind of branded product. The site plan has already undergone multiple iterations with plan staff, and we've got some excellent feedback from both Sam and Robin that our architect and our civil engineer, Pinnacle, has incorporated into what you see. There's still some work that has to be done, but based on how today and Monday goes, we'll roll up the sleeves and kind of get back into it. But the new road on the west side would be coming in as a boulevarded road. We would enter, our main entrance would be off of that. Our clubhouse would essentially sit in that corner, although based on our conversations with Julie Anderson and staff here, we've kind of left that corner alone because we don't quite know if that's going to want to be a roundabout or what sort of intersection that will ultimately be. So we didn't ignore that corner, but we did want to realize that there's things that have to go on there. We've also got a main kind of an east-west boulevarded drive that most of the buildings face that on the interior of the site that will connect to the east and to a future road that would be going in on the east side. Stormwater, that's our low point of the site, so we wanted to try to maintain that. And then as you can see, working with staff, we've got quite a few different items going on the site, with native plantings. Some of those might be opportunity for stormwater features. In the center of the site, we've got kind of a community space that the residents can use. And again, the clubhouse and the dog park, dog run, I'll call it, and with a male pavilion located on the southwest side. Again, this is what our units look like. The clubhouse is very nice. It's all stone, hardy panel, hardy plank, very high-end materials. And inside, the space is also what we consider very nice. Fitness center, it's very well accepted, along with a community room and other spaces in conjunction with our on-site management and leasing offices. The units themselves, they will look very similar, although the stone and color combinations and things like that will vary to make it an individual community, and it'll look similar but not exactly like the Braun Road project. Again, just as a reminder, a lot of granite or quartz surfaces, premium plank flooring, just a very, very upscale and very nice product. I thought I should at least show how it relates to the Leo Living site. We're 26 acres with 320 units, or 12.3 units per acre. Again, we consider these kind of a condo style or garden apartment approach. Our demand at Braun Road has been strong, and a very good reaction from people that want to move in. The Leo site, you're well familiar with that. It's did you call them cabins, Robin? Cottages, okay, so a cottage. So we feel that this site and this development would complement those uses. And that's why we essentially picked this site and ended up at this location. Again, with the development handling with Leo, we're using the same civil engineers, so the TIA ultimately will be in conjunction with them and that data that's already been considered, along with providing water and sanitary sewer and things like that. Again, this is just a little bit of data that addresses the need that always seems to come up as a question. with the decennial census. And we also have, the site was helped, the choosing of this site was helped along with Tracy Cross and Associates, which is the entity that provided the county a few years back on need data and items like that. So with that, I would be happy to address any questions that you have.
Is it fair to say you're going to have a Seasons North and a Seasons South?
Well, essentially that's how it does play out, yeah. They won't be called quite that, but that is how this would come into play.
I mean, just as far as, easy identification.
Yeah, we can, we've been calling the other seasons at Braun Road for years now, and this has been kind of morphed in from Orth Parcel to Spring Street, and that's the official name will be up to our property managers, but for easy reference, that's a good way to put it.
Just as a note to the commissioners, wanted to highlight that you're being asked to approve the RM2 zoning. The Leo site to the south also has RM2 zoning, so that those are complementary districts across Spring Street. And it highlights the flexibility within the zoning code. So, one would be 20-unit kind of walk-ups, while the other are cottage style to the south. Those are the same zoning districts. So, it's moderate density too for a reason. Multiple building types included within that.
Okay. I'm assuming the car wash is going to be a hose in a bucket. I would hope
that is actually a new feature. As we develop these in different communities, we get feedback from our residences, and this is, I don't have a lot of information on it. We'll certainly work with staff when we get to that point, but consider it a covered stall with essentially a hose that you can spray your car off with. And, I had asked Joey if ours has a vacuum, because I don't know, and at this point I hope it does not.
It sounds a little bit like I have over here at just to the building here to the south.
Yeah, it's very simple. There's not.
Because there's a stall downstairs underneath, and vacuum and water with a hose and everything to do.
Yeah. There's not a lot to it, but it is something we've identified that our
well,
tenants
and it's
have
inside.
Yeah.
All right, any other questions for Paul?
Are you anticipating standing water in all of that stormwater, or is it going to be more of a dry catch basin?
We have not moved into the civil engineering at this point. Typically, these ponds have a initial cell that the water moves into, which is called an infiltration basin. And then the second cell is usually a dry part that only sees water when we have events like we did 2 weeks ago, where there's a significant amount of rain that will overflow from the settlement basin into the second cell and then infiltrate from there. So it's usually a wet pond that's the smaller first pond or basin, and then overflow from there. That is dry 90% of the time-ish.
This site does have a kind of similar one to the other senior living facility, where there is a stream identified on the northern maps. The draft site plan looks to avoid it through similar kind of distancing using stormwater. So we'll work with them as, if this is approved and the site plan moves forward, to identify similar opportunities on how to best use that area.
All right, any other questions for Paul or staff? Okay, thank you, Paul.
Thank you.
Any public comment? Please, you know the routine.
Hi, I'm Mark Gleason. I'm the property owner directly to the east of their project, directly across the street from Racine Bible Church. I don't think I'm necessarily opposed to this project, but I have some questions that will come up as I prepare to develop that. One of the issues that you hit on was stormwater. So the northern end of the northern side of their property is a drainage canal that runs almost all the way to I-94. And at I-94, that becomes very wet and has some issues with that. That drainage canal ends at my property line, our west property line, and then becomes underneath our property through the farmland and goes over to under Spring Street and then curves around back to underneath Highway V and goes through the other drainage channel that's there. That's something that would have to be taken into consideration. It would not be appropriate for me to handle the stormwater off of their project. It's an exercise in engineering. I think that can be overcome, but it does exist. One of the other things I've talked with Sam Schultz about, I actually had him out to the property, he was kind enough to come out, and we were talking about a potential road reservation where, as you're calling it, Church Drive would come across northbound, whether that would straddle the property line or if that would have a slight jog and the roadway remain on the applicant's property, or part of it would be on my property. That is something I would like to get more information about, and I would encourage the developers to have some conversation with me about those particular issues. I'm aware that it can be a very good development. Those issues are there. Some of the other issues that are there is that, as you board members have known in the past, that the sewer that runs down Highway V to Highway 20 is a force main until it gets to Highway V, when it gets to Spring Street. As you go south on Highway V from Spring Street, it's gravity fed. And if sewer is going to be extended on the south side of Spring Street going west to feed probably both the Leo project and the applicant's product, there may be a requirement for a lift station. That's something that should be investigated and brought out. I don't know what that actually is. I also know that Caledonia I've heard some rumblings that want to expand the gravity fed from some of their force main. And I don't know if that's rumor, speculation, or what, but that's kind of out there on the street that they want to change some of their force main, which could affect their project as well as the Leo project. When we say the Leo project, I always refer to it as the Isaacson property because they were there for 130 years, and it'll always be Isaacson property to me. So there's some questions that I'll have. I've seen these developments before. They can be very good developments, and I'm not against things that are going to happen. I realize the old family farm is going to go by the wayside someday. When that is, I don't know. Currently, I have no desire to sell my property, but I also realize that the day will come where something will happen. So I think good communications with the board is going to be important for this project. For a lot of different reasons. You're going to be on a county highway, and you potentially have an additional traffic load of around 1,600 cars per day between the two projects based upon how many units are there, and using the average of 2 cars per unit, as most people have 2 cars nowadays. So when you combine all those things, signalization on Spring Street, where the western and eastern entrances will be to that project are pretty critical, whether that be roundabouts or whether that be, mechanical signalization. I will tell you already, the traffic out there is becoming increasingly busy, and putting a traffic light at V and Spring Street was a wise decision as it slowed the traffic down. I wish it would come down a little bit more. We're seeing an increase in traffic accidents, speeding. We're in a society right now that is completely lawlessness when it comes to traffic violations, and you see those things every day. So somehow we got to get them slowed down a little bit to make that work. I was contacted by the applicants at one time. I don't know which gentleman was there. I would like for them to contact me again, if possible, so that we could have a face-to-face conversation with some more specific plans in mind and what they intend on doing about the issues that I have brought up. Currently, I don't have any particular objections to that. I'm a little concerned about TIFs and TIDs and different things like that, as they're designed not for every project that comes to a community, but for some projects for good cause. And that should be a consideration as well. That doesn't mean it's not worthy of consideration for that. It just means that it's something that should be considered. So with that, I don't have anything else unless you have a question to me.
Anybody have anything for Mark?
Okay.
Civil engineers are going to be busy.
Yes, they are. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you, Mark. All right. Any other public comment? All right. What's your pleasure, gentlemen? Are there still concerns, still questions?
I see a brain moving over here. He's going to do a motion.
Okay.
I gotta figure out how to get the right number this time.
I was wrong before, so I'm confused too.
It would be the one on your executive summary, Frank.
I don't think it is. Nope, that's not it.
22.
I think it's 20, it's either 2210 or 1020. Yeah, it's 2210 by the new numbering style, and it would be 1022 by the old one.
Okay.
Okay.
It's a good thing they have parcel
And
numbers.
that's ordinance 26/2022, right?
Correct.
Alrighty then. I move that we recommend approval of ordinance 26/2022, a zoning map amendment for Spring Street, zoning map amendment ZMA 22-10.
Second.
Motion and a second. Any further discussion? Hearing none, I will call the question. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you, gentlemen. Looking forward to it. Okay, now we will move on to 3528 Meachem Road Comprehensive Plan Amendment, CPA 22-2.
Oop. Clicker. There we go. Oh, wrong way. Okay, this is 3528 Meachem Road, Comp Plan Amendment, CPA 22-2, parcel ID 151032225030000. Property owner Blue Sky Real Estate Group, applicant Christopher Wand. Comp plan is residential areas, local planning area 19, and the current zoning district is RH1, curious enough. The applicant applied to change the village's comp plan as part of the land use element of the multi-jurisdictional comp plan for Racine County 2035 for a 0.72 acre parcel at 3528 Meachem Road from residential areas, multifamily to mixed residential commercial. The site currently contains 2 commercial buildings, one of which the applicant wishes to sell via condominium plat. However, the current zoning of the site is RH1. To clean up the entitlements process, the applicant intends to change the comp plan designation and zoning to match the current business use of the property. Essentially, they wanted to divide the property, that's no problem, in order to market off and sell the building in the front. The building in the front is an existing non-conforming use of an insurance agency, I believe. If the zoning stays the same, they would have to keep it in the same ballpark of office use. It wouldn't be able to change to, say, I don't know, vape shop or, pawn store or something. Let me use something else, like a trading card store. I don't know, Magic the Gathering spot. Well, who knows? But in order to switch to that, they would need to meet the zoning requirements. So right now it's zoned RH1, which is kind of curious because RH1 is not exactly a very common zoning designation existing on property that does not have it already. Another thing is that this parcel and the parcel immediately adjacent to it to the north are kind of an island peninsula amongst the city of Racine. City of Racine uses are multifamily to the north and to the west. So you can basically find, our overview of whether or not this comp plan amendment is consistent with the goals of the and surrounding land uses. And all of that, we have the recommendation to go ahead and move forward with a public hearing. So all that is basically sets a public hearing date 30 days from now where we have advertised to the public and to the local people in the area that we are considering this comp plan amendment and for them to come in and speak on it. And then after that is held, the Plan Commission can vote on it along with any concurrent zoning or site plan applications, which they plan on doing. Another thing is that the applicant applied for just their parcel, but staff is of the opinion that the parcel immediately to the north, kind of, as far as a comp plan, probably should be joined with it. It doesn't change anything about what the current use of the property is or the current zoning of the property. It just changes what the comp plan could be in the future. And considering that they are both comp planned as residential and the application is to mix residential commercial, it is only adding rights. It is not taking any away. So we would be open to the Plan Commission adding that condition to the application. And that is pretty much it. That site to the north is just a single family home.
Okay, any questions for Robin?
Pretty straightforward. I mean, and obviously we'll have all the public hearing and stuff like that next month.
Tom, do you have enough information to follow us on this? Good, okay. If there's no questions of Robin, the applicant is not here?
I don't believe so, no.
Okay. Any public comment? Mark? Travis? Okay. And commissioners?
I guess would make a consideration if you wanted to add that condition or not.
It does make sense.
Your turn, John.
You also do paper, rock, scissors like every single time.
Yes. Tom, can you put a motion together? Go ahead.
I'm going to defer to one of you gentlemen to do it.
Do we need further information, or?
The wording would be, I move to put the 3528 Meachem Road Comprehensive Plan Amendment to a public hearing with the condition of adding the parcel immediately to the north. That would be the phraseology that we're looking for.
And so a so moved could work here.
This will really kind of clean up that whole area there, right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
just a bit of a cleanup. Now y'all can say so moved. Somebody.
Yeah, that's all we're looking for. So moved.
Sure.
Second?
Is that good, Frank? Is that?
That's
Would
fine.
you move that? Okay, so we have a motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
Motion and a second. Any further discussion? I'm calling the question. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. All right. Next up, Carrington Boulevard Certified Survey Map, CSM 22-9.
Mr. Chair, members of the commission, the applicant proposed splitting the parcel into two lots. Lot 1 is 14.3 acres and Lot 2 is 26.47 acres. The applicant wishes to place the 226,000 square foot warehousing building approved with SP 2521 on its own parcel while leaving the remaining property ready for future phases of HSA's Park 94 development. The application follows land use element of the comp plan. The application all follows the transportation element, land use element of the draft local area plan 5. But that's not in local area plan 5. Sorry, that should be 1. CSM standards, 74.6.2G, existing and applicable proposed zoning, proposed lot lines, size of storm sewers, culverts, drain pipes, invert elevations, etc. The application meets the design standards. The application includes the required improvements. The application meets the RM2 lot size standards. That should be the BP lot size standards. I apologize. The lands contained within the zoning map, within the CSM, lie within tax incremental district number 1. The village board approved a development agreement with the applicant for the Park 94 development, setting a $3.9 million reimbursement for all phases of the project, including potential additional developments to the north and east of Lot 1. Comparable speculative industrial developments create an assessable value of approximately $80 a square foot. This value equates to approximately $18 million in incremental value for TID 1 and generates roughly $350,000 in incremental taxes for TID 1 annually. Any leasing and subsequent interior build-out could increase those values. Per the development agreement with HSA, the taxes from this project will first pay down a special assessment owed by HSA for Carrington Boulevard and then pay off the revenue obligation for the extension of Kilbourne Drive. The development would also generate an approximate value per acre of $1.5 million. Cost projections for adjacent road repaving estimate the project needs to contribute about 4% of its taxes over 20 years to the cost of repaving, less than the 6% on average the village contributes to its annual paving program. We have the conditions recommended in the footnotes. Those are the 3 I previously mentioned regarding zoning, maximum lot size for zoning district, minimum lot size for zoning district, and the location size and invert elevation of all the sanitary sewers, storm sewers, culverts, etc. With that, we recommend approval.
That was a lot.
There's a lot for a very simple thing there, just carving off a lot 1 for a building that's under construction. If you go at the corner of Carrington Boulevard and 20 right now, you can see them pushing dirt around.
All right, any questions of Sam? Any public comment? Who? Okay.
Just this.
I move to recommend approval of the Carrington Boulevard Certified Survey Map, CSM 22-9, to the village board, subject to the recommended conditions.
Second.
Motion and a second. Any further discussion? And then I'll call the question. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries for the Carringtons. All right, next. Is there anything next? Oh, yeah, I guess there is. All right. Megan's Way Certified Survey Map, CSM 2210.
So we got 3 that I'll kind of take in a batch. The first one is Megan's Way, the second one is Megan's Way, and the third one is County Trunk Highway H. They're all related to the Tivoli Green Phase 2 development that you previously approved the other month, and the village board approved the zoning for, et cetera, et cetera. The applicant proposed amending the lot lines to move the shared lot line between lots 1 and 2 and lots 1 and lots 2 and 3, 27 feet northwards for the Megan's Way certified survey map. For the other Megan's Way, it's just the other parcel. They're also moving the shared lot line 27 feet northwards. What this does is effectively share the lot line on the east-west private drive between the Phase 1 development and the Phase 2 development. So that's such just appropriate shared property lines between the two developments. And then for the County Trunk Highway H, the applicant proposed amending CSM 0722 to create a third lot at the northwest corner of Megan's Way and Campus Drive. They wish to reserve that land for future development separate from the approved Tivoli Green Phase 2 development. So that area, if you remember correctly, on that CSM and site plan, that area was left blank. There, the kind of southwest corner of this map. That area was left blank on those approved site plans, and they're just dividing off that property to reserve for future development separate from the Phase 2 development. We had a bunch of standards in here, but the applicant was actually able to subsequently revise the map to meet all those standards. I just got them earlier today, so we can recommend that you can remove the conditions from each of the approvals except for the Condition 3 on County Trunk Highway H, which says Racine County requested that the applicant place access restrictions along County Trunk Highway H for lots 1 and 3. Additionally, the county has final permitting authority regarding Anderson Boulevard connection to County Trunk Highway H, including any required lane improvements to County Trunk Highway H. Well, I think the applicant has every intent to meet that condition. I just wanted to leave it on there as a courtesy to our friends at County Public Works, acknowledging that they ultimately will permit that connection. But other than that, I can answer any specific questions. The application continues to meet all the design standards and require improvement standards other than that H1 that I called out.
I do have a question courtesy of Joe Meyer, I believe, that asked one. He wanted the applicant to, or you to clarify the snow shoveling situation on Anderson Boulevard between the area where it's aligning with the other parcels, but not quite in the development itself.
So typically, the snow shoveling would be the responsibility of the adjacent lot owners, but we'll work out that final responsibility unless you have a comment on that, Mark. Yeah, so there you go. The applicant's going to take responsibility of shoveling those two stretches out to the street, which makes sense because they'll be shoveling the rest of it. Right. So. But with that, these three applications all meet the required standards, design standards, required improvements for certified survey maps. These applications are all subject. As a fiscal note, the lands contained lie within the map area amendment tax increment district number 2. The village board approved a development agreement with the applicant for phase 1, setting a 5.4 and a 4.4 reimbursement for phase 1A and 1B respectively. The village board approved a development agreement with the applicant for phase 2, setting a maximum 5.3 million reimbursement that is subject to adjustment via look-back provisions. Other than that, staff recommend approval of all three. I'd recommend that you vote on them separately.
Okay. Any other questions for Sam?
So as between the three of these, you have no conditions to the first two CSMs? And
Correct.
One condition for the third one?
Yep, just the county-related no access and permitting authority. Perfect.
Good.
We do or do not have a condition to the third of the list of CSM?
You can leave it on or remove it.
We need to leave
It's
it
up
on
you.
because that's what we have in front of us, so we'll leave it on. Good point.
I'll clarify it for the village board
Yep.
approval on Monday regardless.
Yep. Okay, any questions of Sam or of Mark? Any public comment? No? Okay.
And we'll do these one at a time then,
Yes.
Sam? All right, well, then I'll make a motion to recommend approval of the Megan's Way Certified Survey Map CSM-22-10 to the village board without any conditions.
Second.
Motion and a second. Any further discussion? Hearing none, I'll call the question. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Next, we're looking for a motion for Certified Survey Map CSM 2211.
Okay, then I'd like to make a motion to recommend approval of the Megan's Way Certified Survey Map CSM-22-11 to the village board without being subject to any conditions.
Second.
Motion and a second. No further discussion. I'll call the question. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
And then I would like to make a motion to recommend approval of the County Highway H Certified Survey Map CSM-22-12 to the village board, subject to one condition, which is footnote number 3, Racine County, so that there's final permitting, footnote condition number 3 as stated.
Perfect.
Cool.
Yep.
Second.
Motion and a second. Any further discussion? Hearing none, I'll call a question. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. Opposed? None. Motion carries. All right. We've gotten through quite a agenda here. Next up then will be Robin Palm. Thank you, Mark. Thank you, Travis.
Okay, Dustin, if we can go back to the slideshow for just a second, just to kind of go, this is my staff report, and we're going to go through, that's George. He spoke a long time ago. Basically, we don't have any administrative adjustment applications to report. One signed permit application for 11907 Meridian Drive. Zoning compliance permit for 3632 Bankers Road for Anchor Therapy. A request letter for 2715 and 2815 International Drive. That's the Ashley Capital parcels. Municipal complaint and an issued violation to 2140 Rivershore, blighted property. Been basically exposed house wrap for multiple years, so much that you can't even read Tyvek on it anymore. There's a hidden back there. You can only really see it from the golf course. It's quite a sight. So that is my sort of staff comments. We're going to go to talk about Green Bay Road again. You guys are all invited to a public information session along Green Bay Road for the renovation. I guess they're calling it a pavement replacement project. And we received, I don't know if they're going to present any new designs, but what they presented to the local officials meeting on June, it's actually a downgrade from what we were opposed to last time. So I guess now we can shift back over to the PDF. Thank you. So this was the existing roadway section as you know it today, and this was the initial concept design. And I'll zoom in here. And the concept design had 11-foot driving lanes, an extra wide median, a 12-foot outside truck lane, 5-foot shoulder with a 2-foot sort of curb area, 8-foot terrace, and sidewalks. The bike accommodation was to be in the shoulder / sort of curb zone, so 7 feet. And this was shared with us at the local officials meeting. This is the existing roadway, and this is the concept design. So as you can see, they've shrunk down the profile quite a bit. From an 11-foot lane goes to 10. The 11-foot center lane is the same. An 11-foot outside lane goes from 12 to 11. Generally, that's all fine, but then the 5-foot shoulder is included, and that's down from 7 feet. So the area in which they were saying you were going to bike along trucks going however fast they go on Green Bay Road has now been reduced by 2 feet. Considering that this was the main complaint we had from the first go around, we did not really express approval of this. And we're looking into different kind of things, what options we have. But I just wanted to kind of fill you in on that this was the current proposal. WSDOT in general has several projects like this that, due to a new cost benefit analysis, they've changed full reconstructs to what they call pavement replacing within the same right of way, really not doing a whole lot besides just generally replacing the pavement. So that's just kind of some example of what it looks like. One of the other things that they did is they used to have double left turn lanes, extended right turn lanes, and deceleration lanes. Those have all been removed. None of that's there. And I'm going to skip it here. The right turn lanes and deceleration lanes are really important in staff's eyes because the yellow here is rear end crashes. Rear end crashes happen when somebody stops suddenly and somebody rear ends them, obviously. If half the crashes are rear end crashes, that leads to probably a problem in sudden stops. If you have places for cars to go before they do a sudden stop, these happen a lot less. So by removing them, we think that they're not addressing that problem.
Robin, is their goal to just eliminate buying more properties?
Cost considerations are probably a primary motivating factor here, as well as we don't know what their cost benefit formula is. For us, having someone safely bike along the side of the road is important. It is not important in this calculation. A couple of other things. I'll go back to is that land? No, that's the schedule. Okay, I have to go up. So they were talking. This is basically the average daily traffic. They are saying that between existing traffic volumes between 31,000 and 38,000 vehicles per day, and design year 2045, 34 to 40,000 vehicles per day. Never mind that 40,000 is not necessarily a huge jump from 38, but looking at all of the data, and this is data going back from 2004 or 2005 is the earliest ADD to now. This is like the 20-year trend line for all the traffic counts along State Highway 31. It is flat, if not just a little bit down. WSDOT has not really given us the acceptance that the pandemic effects on traffic are over. So these most recent readings of 25,000, they're not even taking into account when they're considering this roadway redo, which is an error because we believe that it's actually a little bit more of an indication of the changing nature of the corridor. A lot of these big boxes have closed. They're redeveloping. A lot more. No one's going to the malls much anymore. You're getting it through Amazon. Traffic's coming out of the big warehouses along the interstate and not necessarily going to the mall. The redevelopment of the mall that's been in the papers, that's only, kind of adding to these kind of concepts. That is also an additional wrinkle that, if that is being redeveloped, perhaps it all starts with the road. So we should consider what kind of roadway we want in the future. When at this meeting, basically I asked, what is a 12 to 14-year-old teenager, teenager? What if they're riding a bike? What are they going to do on this road? Are you suggesting that they ride next to the truck lane? And listed at 35 miles per hour, but they actually go 45 to 50. And the response by a WSDOT official was, well, they can pass for 12, so they can ride on the sidewalk. So, as you know, we have an ordinance that prevents anybody from over 12 years old from riding on the sidewalk, and people 12 years old and under can ride on it. And needless to say, that kind of drove home what the disconnect was in these discussions. And I hope that you, as the plan commissioners and village board members and members of the public, go to this meeting and tell them what you think. Because we've told them, and they haven't really changed what they're proposing. And while I don't really expect them to go into, like, you know, a 4-lane road or whatever, at least accommodating right turn lanes and left turn lanes so people can slow down in safety, as well as extended or expanded pedestrian and bicyclist space outside of the roadway is very, very important, especially because this connects to the Racine County Trail, which crosses this area. And it also is kind of near, if you were to continue down, you would connect to the Kenosha Trail and our new Pike River pathway connections along the Pike River subdivision that we just approved. So there's a lot of like brewing bikeways and pathways that are all off-street, like off-street 10-foot asphalt paths, and we just want that to continue and kind of running into
Robin, maybe it's appropriate that Mount Pleasant Lutheran Church, where this hearing is going to be, or informational meeting is going to be held, is also known locally as the Spaceship Church.
Yeah, this is where that's going to be, and it's going to be held on the 29th at 5 p.m. So I will be there in my official staff capacity and answering any questions. I'll try to put on a friendly face.
Robin, are there any federal or state regulations or statutes that require bike lanes and bike traffic to be given due consideration?
Yes. However, there's the way WSDOT is kind of getting around, or in my view, getting around, is that they're saying that to receive federal dollars, bike accommodations have to be made. In a roadway like this, a extended shoulder or a wide shoulder is a reasonable on-street accommodation. Also, according to WSDOT, an off-street multi-use path is not a suitable replacement for an on-street accommodation. So a request for one would be extra and additional above and beyond. Not to mention, just like if you asked anybody, what would you rather have? Would you rather ride at a shoulder, or would you rather ride at an off-street path? And I would say 95 out of 100 would say the off-street path. It would only be the really, really fast cyclists that will cycle anywhere, anytime, under any conditions that will say otherwise. And they could probably still do so.
But they took the position that a 2-foot shoulder next to a truck lane
it's been reduced 2 feet. So it was 7, now it's 5, which is less than a standard bike lane. Standard bike lane is 6 feet wide.
Over to Ohio Street. I just said that it's going to push more of the north-south traffic onto Ohio Street off of 31, because that's the nearest
big road, yeah.
Big road. And after that, it's Lathrop Avenue.
Mm-hmm. In the long-term plan, there is a, Oaks Road should go through. And I've asked Sewer Pack to give models about what that would do to traffic if that Oaks Road connection were to go through as far as on 31. We believe it would alleviate traffic. WSDOT says it would have no effect. That is what it is. But so that's just basically the update of where that is. I'm currently in the process of updating the letter, giving another sort of memo letter, and I will present it to probably Cal and the village board, if willing, to basically sum up what I just told you right now. If you guys give me a head nod, if that's fine. And that that we will kind of sort of present that to WisDOT at this particular meeting.
You do have experience going to local meetings and talking about bikes and everything. I seem there maybe that your name did get in the paper.
It gets in the paper more often than I would be smart to want, but unfortunately, I'm not always smart.
But you're the voice of a reason.
Yeah, I mean, I can't say I have not seen anybody that didn't work for WisDOT that thinks that this design is a good idea, and that's been consistent for years. So and especially when they like said, oh, why don't they just use the sidewalk? And it's like, well, basically that's what we're saying, but let's make that area wide enough to actually accommodate that traffic and be smart about it.
But I think too, as you're out and about, you're seeing a lot more adults riding on bicycles, whether it's on Highway 20 or other places and everything then too.
We mentioned e-bikes on that first letter in 2021. We mentioned the adoption of e-bikes. E-bikes outsold electric vehicles last year. I own both, but I'm not necessarily but they are being adopted more widely, and it's making it easier for people that are not super physically fit to go longer distances on bikes. So the long distances in Mount Pleasant between blocks become a lot more traversable if you have an e-bike as opposed to a regular bike. So much so that I think that should be the priority in design as opposed to a concrete sidewalk for a quarter mile before it gets to anything. But that's just my opinion, although you guys do pay me for my opinion. So.
Or an e-car.
Yeah. An e-car, mobility scooters. Actual like the push scooters, like Razors. All those other recumbent bicycles. All of those kind of things are in this class. And under these kind of things, a mobility scooter would be kind of said, you can be in that shoulder too, and that's scary. And we don't necessarily know what there's no, besides sort of convincing them of our point, I'm not sure what the silver bullet is, but we're going to try. I think that's about it, unless you have any other questions. I encourage you and everyone you know to share the flyer and to attend that meeting and let them know what you think. And let them know our goal is stuff like around the Foxconn area, the Pike River Pathway, and like giving thumbs up to the Kenosha Trail to our south. All of those are great amenities, and we look forward to furthering those.
This same information, maybe in a little bit condensed, was also sent out in the mail. I got one. I think probably everybody around here got one of those in the mail. A lot of people are getting it.
Okay, and with that, we can go back to the regular presentation.
Thank you for fighting the good fight, Robin.
Thanks.
Sam, wrap it up.
So just wanted to give you a brief update on one of the department's goals. This was in our strategic plan this year, was to move to online permitting. So we are fully online now. All the planning related permits are online, and we're assisting our fellow coworkers in building inspection and the clerk treasurer's office and public works, and working to help them get their permits online as well. So it will be a rolling process, but just a brief update. They're all through the OpenGov platform, and all our planning permits are available. Robin mentioned the numbering convention was kind of switching mid-month this week because we started accepting them about mid-month. But it should really help us keep on top of these, get comments to applicants earlier, keep things organized. It's more transparent. Tracking payments is easier. So all of the above, moving from paper to this we're taking like a couple steps up. So it's been really positive so far, but we have a lot of work and tweaking and stuff to go. So like the code and other things, this is will be subject to further improvements, but this is 2023 will be year 2 of the 5-year contract for this, so we'll have it for a while before we go out again. We're also tracking municipal complaints by this, which probably outnumber all our other permits 2 to 1 at this point, but it is helpful to both Lisa in assigning them, Robin, myself, in inspecting them and keeping those organized and on time as well. And applicants, we'd encourage anyone who's submitting a permit for a planning-related permit or a municipal complaint to just register an account and go on and submit things. They can attach things like photos or other documents to complaints or other applications as well. So if you have any questions about it, let me know, but all in all, progress.
Cool, yes, indeed. The citations, are they stored online then? Can they be accessible, or are those a file for you guys?
Generally, we could get them from the police department, but when we refer things to actual citation, typically it's referred to an officer. They have a separate kind of citation tracking system between them and court. So there is a little bit of interplay that would require some manual uploads. This is mostly for kind of the investigative inspection stages on our end of the building, and then, you know, when things go into police and court land, they go into their own separate system.
Lisa, thank you for staying awake through all of this.
The next meeting is 3rd week of October, so we'll see you all then.
Thank you, Sam. Thank you, Robin. Thank you, Lisa.
Move to adjourn.
Do I have a second?
Second.
All in